Hello everyone, I hope you're well. Warm welcome to my YouTube channel. And I thought I'd create a journal page again. So, because I'm quite enjoying using my paints at the moment. So I just need to find the page that I added to. My book is nearly full, so I'm going to need another Pink Pig 25-page journal. These have just come back in stock. So many stock items coming back in stock. So that one was pink and blue, wasn't it? I could add it there, couldn't I? Or there. Oh, let's add it here, it doesn't matter. So I've got a page, as you can see, it's really marked, doesn't matter. And on the other side, yes, I've got a project because my journal page is quite full. So I'm going to open that out, which I absolutely love, the fact that I can open that out. And what I'm going to use is, I'm just going to go for it and use some of my paints. So I'm going to use Bodacious, Orchid, Taffy, Iris, and maybe a bit of blue with Legit. So let's get some of those colours on there. And if I don't know where I'm going, I'll just lay the colour on. I'll take two colours. So let's take Bodacious. And I can feel I've got an airlock in there. It's because I am terrible at leaving my bottles open. And you know you shouldn't do that. But because I'm concentrating, sometimes I leave my bottles open. Then I go downstairs and I get involved in something else for hours on end. And then I come back and realise my bottles have been left open. That's it. So we've got Bodacious, a nice little blob of Bodacious. And let's use some Orchid. Oh, yes. Lovely, lovely, lovely. So I'm going to take my brayer and I'm going to brayer these two colours out. And I'm just going to load my brayer. And that, to be honest, is probably too much paint. But hey ho. Now, can you see where there's gaps on my page? That's because I have items underneath that are layered. That doesn't bother me in the slightest. I just go with it. So if your page is completely blank underneath and you don't have lots of layers like I do that are layered underneath, well, you won't have that issue. To be honest, I'm not bothered that it's got some of that white areas on there. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to add some taffy. So I'm going to take the taffy and I'll just add that to here. And that's a little bit of a lighter colour. And I'm going to brayer that out. And I always brayer my paints out because I just find it a little bit easier to layer without big clumps. Because if you go in too harsh, sometimes it can get too messy. So what I'm going to do now is just clean that a little bit. Now, you could quite easily spritz with water and you could mop that page up again, because with the water, because this is just a wipe that's full of water, so you can see that you could quite easily get another background from that. Now, once I've layered down the initial colours, what I do then is I come in with less colour. So I don't come in too harshly with the other colours. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to take a little bit of Iris, just a little bit of that, and I'm not going to add too much at a time, and I'm just going to add a little bit of the Iris. Oh, what lovely colours. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of the Iris and I'm just going to use my finger and just drag some up to the top of the page, just so that that doesn't look too neglected. So what I'll do is I'll take a little bit of the taffy again. So take some taffy. And I haven't cleaned my finger. And I'll just come in with a little bit of taffy just to add it to the top of the page. Now, when you add it with your finger, you're going to come in a lot thicker with that paint. So watch. Can you see how that's all braided out? If I come in with my finger, I'm going to come in with richer layers of paint. So what I'm doing is I'm adding a little bit of lightness now with the taffy. And colours like the taffy are really important because they bring lightness to the design. Now, you see, I'm loving this. And that taffy now becomes a really important part on that page because it brings some lightness to that. So let's just, so I'm quite enjoying just adding a little bit of lightness to that. And what I'm doing is I'm pushing back that purple. So let's take, and by pushing back that purple, it means that if I want a purple floral in the foreground, I can use that because this taffy is pushing back all the other colour. Absolutely, what a brilliant colour to push everything back. Now, I'm going to grab another piece of scrap card. So let's just try and move that out of the way. And let's pick up whatever we've got here. And can you see it's very dry, apart from the taffy that I've just laid down. So what I'm going to do is spritz with a bit of water. And I'm going to spray it with the water on there. And just see if I pick up any more. So now I've got another piece of card I could actually work with quite easily. So it means you're wasting very, very little of your paints. And you know, when you've paid hard-earned pennies for your paints, we don't want to waste that. It's quite dry now, that is. So let's dry this. So I can see now that that taffy becomes a really important colour. And it just works beautifully, really beautifully. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit of a contrast with the Legit. So let's take a little bit of Legit. And I'm going to spray that onto my spray it, and I'm almost just touching the page. Now I haven't dried my paint because it just blends a little bit better. So I'm going to take a little bit more of the Legit, spray that out, and then gently just spray that on. There we go. And that gives me a little bit of a contrast onto my page. And what I can do then is I can come in with a little bit more taffy. And sometimes don't just think of like the taffy as like, oh, that's pink. Think of it as a colour that lightens everything else. And it does become quite an important part of the project. So I'm adding this with my finger, and the only reason I'm adding it with my finger is it sort of leaves it a little bit smoother. So what I can do is pick up the rest of the taffy, and then you can brayer it. It gives it a different effect by brayering it over the top. There we go. So now I've got a beautiful background, and I just need to dry that. So let's give that a dry. Let's bring that page in. And that taffy plays an important part now on my page. And you can see it didn't matter one bit about the fact that I got a few gaps, the fact that I'd got a few marks on the page. It didn't matter. And that's what we like about it. So have I got any thought I might have left a piece of cut and dry foam out. Probably that's asking too much, is it? Did I? Oh, I did, Luke. It's got all the colours under the sun on, but I did leave some out. What I'm going to do now is add some touches of white, and I'm going to use the Stencil Daisy. I'm going to use the Stencil Daisy ST5. And I'm going to add, let's have that one there. And I'm going to grab a little bit of glow-tack tape. Now, oh, I've got my dispenser that Anne gave me that clips onto your desk. I've got mine clipped onto my light, which means that I don't have to turn the edge over, because Anne, thank you Anne, bought me that for my birthday, which is just perfect. So I'm just going to mask off the top of that flower. It doesn't matter, I've got a little bit there, that's absolutely, is it absolutely fine? This is where I then faff, because I am terrible. There's nobody that faffs like me, I tell you. See, I need to just take a little bit of that off. There we go. So I've just masked off the stem, the top part of the stem. I've just masked that off a little bit. Let's move that out of the way. I'm going to take some white paint. Excuse me. And look at that. Got a big lump of paint that I don't really want. Let's just, that's better. Put your lid on, which Tracy often forgets. And then we're going to add this white paint to the Daisy. Now, work that paint into your sponge, your car sponge, your dishwasher sponge, whatever you've got. And then we're going to tap, tap, tap. Now, I'm using the stencil this time just with the daisy on there and no stem. So I'm just tapping that on there. Tap, tap, tap. And then let's just lift that up. Wonderful. Just look at that. Look how the white. Love, love, love that. So let's just give that a dry. You see how the white pops on there? Isn't that fantastic? And now don't your colours take on a whole new life of their own? Oh, absolutely love it. So then we'll take the white again. Nothing complicated about that at all. And it doesn't matter whether you've got as much white on there as I have, it will just be paler. I like that really bright opaque white against the background. It makes me happy. See, just lovely. And everything just takes on a whole new light. Oh, that is just gorgeous. So let's take part of this. Because I'm not laying my stencil over that, I don't have to worry about drying it. So let's add a little bit of the floral. And can you see I've moved the floral, so I'm not adding the same amount of the daisy each time. I'm adding, you know, in different directions, half the floral or whatever. Oh yes, And you can see when I look through the camera, I can see just how beautiful that is. So I'm going to add a little bit of that floral down here. Now, can you see that is the question? Yes, just about see that. So you can see I tap quite vigorously, just so that I can lay that paint down. So I'm tapping that just so that we can lay that down. There we go. I've got a little bit of the floral there. So you don't want the whole thing every time. Now I'm going to give this a dry because my stencil is going to touch this area here. And we don't want that stencil to stick to any area. Right, so now I want this, because this might be my main focal point. Right, okay. So I'm going to lay this paint now. Quite thick on here. Not that I can at the moment because there's not enough paint. Let's grab a little bit more paint. There we go. Doesn't that white make a difference? And how the taffy played its part. It's worked beautifully. So can you see I'm layering more white paint on this one. Let's see what we've got now. Wonderful, because I'm going to colour that one in. So what we'll do now is we'll spend a few moments just clearing our area and our hands, just so that we don't get in too much of a mess. Then we'll clean our stencil, because it'll be quite dry on there because I've tapped that many layers of paint. So let's clean that tape off there. Actually, we don't want that in there, do we? So we'll just clear our stencil just so that it's not in too much of a mess. By all means, you could wipe that extra white paint on your stencil onto another piece of card quite easily. Okay, let's just... Now I'm just going to give this a dry. Doesn't that white make the page look completely different, don't you think? Absolutely gorgeous. Now I can add more white florals if I need to, but at the moment we'll just work with it as it is at the moment. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to grab my pencils. Let's grab one light colour. Just so it coordinates with our background. So let's grab, what colour are you? That's nice and pale. Nice pale colour, but of course it isn't sharpened. So let's give that a little bit of a sharpen. There we go. So I've got my pencils. Let's put this on. Getting a little bit dull now. So what I've got, let's make sure that's dry. My light colour is Grade Lavender PC1026. I'll use that sort of at the end. My dark colour is Black Cherry 1078. Then I'm going to use Mulberry 995 and then Process Red 994. I'm going to keep those colours in order. Yes. Now, remember, let's just give that another little waft. Mainly because I can't tell because my hands are so filthy anyway. Now, remember, this is scratchy. It's got texture on there, so it's not going to be completely smooth. So I'm going to go with the black cherry, which is 1078. Let's wipe my fingers so you're not looking at painty fingers. Not exactly. So I'm going to come in with that dark colour. And as you colour over your paint, you can feel that texture on there. Now, I've put lots of layers of that paint, and that's purposely done. One, because it gives a wonderful feel to your page, and also it gives a wonderful texture. Let's just... Now, don't forget, we can come in with some more white florals, should we wish to do that. And I don't know whether you can hear the texture, but when you come to colour yours, you'll feel the lumps and bumps on your page. So I'm going to add a little stem, or a long stem, if you like, just so that my floral has got a little bit of a stem on there. So then I'm going to go in with my second colour. Keep your pencils in order, it just makes it a bit easier. So then I'm going to come in to the mulberry. So let's come into that mulberry. And just relax into that process. And just enjoy the process. How funny, it's just reminded me that as Patricia bought me a keyring for my birthday, and look what it says on it: trust the process. Perfect. Just remind me when I said that. So I'm just going to come in with this colour, and you're just going to layer that colour down. Now, it's going to be a completely different look to when you colour straight onto pure smooth white card. I'm then going to come to the Process Red 994. Add a little bit of the Process Red. And you're still going to take your time when you add these colours. You're not going to come in too firmly, just like you wouldn't, you know, in any other project. I've completely missed one, but by now, if you've been watching my videos long enough, you know exactly how many times I miss a petal. Do it quite frequently. You know that by now. So we've just layered, you see, I missed several here. I think because it plays havoc with your eyes when you first do it, because you've got this other floral close by as well. And then we've got that very pale colour, which is the Grade Lavender 1026. And this is sort of the colour I will come in. Just add a little bit more of that Grade Lavender. And we will add a little bit of white as well. There we go. So let's come in again. So I'm going to come in with the Black Cherry 1078. And I'm going to come in and just add a little bit more of that colour. Okay, so let me show you. So can you see with your pencils, it is very textured. So you've got choices here. You can either carry on and add in your layers like that, or this is where I just completely send you all, it was that way, wasn't it? You can place your stencil over the top. Might take you a few seconds just to get that lined up. There we go. It's entirely up to you. You don't have to do this. Let's just cut this so it hasn't got that. And now you don't have to do this, but I'm just showing you the differences you get. Now, will that work? There we go. So I've masked off the stem again. Now you saw me with the pencils, and obviously you need to lay it a lot more. However, you can do it with your paints. So you've got your Bodacious. Then we've got the Iris, so you want it a little bit of darker colours. And then we'll have the Taffy. So you can do it with your paints as well. So it's entirely up to you what you go for. So the Bodacious is the darkest colour. Probably should have not put them quite as close. Oh, there we go. So let's pick up the Bodacious. Now with the Bodacious, you can go around and just tap. So you're tapping in the centre. Okay, now don't forget there's white on this as well. I'm not worried about that too much. Then I'm going to go to the Iris. And then I'm going to bring in the Taffy. Now I've done all this whilst the paints are wet. So I've come in with the paints. So what I'm going to do then is, I'm just going to wipe my fingers because I've got paint everywhere. I'm just, with the stencil in place, I'm just going to give a little bit of a waft. Only a little bit because you've got your stencil on there. I'm then going to come back to the Bodacious. Like so. And then the Iris. So let's put the Iris up here. So I'm then going to come with the Iris and add a little bit of the Iris, just like you would with the pencils, no different. Then I'm going to come back to the Taffy. So let's take a little bit of the Taffy. And then I can blend a little bit of the Taffy. Just at the ends. So with the Taffy, like you would with your light colour pencil, you sort of blend your colours with that Taffy. You then come in back to your Bodacious and just dab your Bodacious. Then you come back to your Taffy and just So again, we'll just lightly dry that, just lightly, because you don't want to affect your stencil. I'm going to come to the Bodacious. So you're using your paints to colour with. Then I'm going to take a little bit of iris. Oh, there might be enough iris in there. And then we want some more taffy. So I'm going to add the Bodacious, just so we add another layer of that colour. A little bit of the orchid. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add, sorry, that was Bodacious and iris. I'm now going to add a little bit of orchid, just so that it picks up some of that colour in the background. So I'm going to take a little bit of the orchid. Yes. So I'm taking a little bit of that orchid, just to add some of the orchid. That orchid's a lovely colour. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come to the taffy. And with the taffy, I'm just going to blend that taffy just at the ends. Now, if you haven't got enough taffy showing, because don't forget that's your light colour, do you like how it's sticking to my finger? Add some more taffy if you want a little bit more. I can easily wash out the sponge, it's not a problem. So just take your time. Okay, so where's the I want a little bit more of the orchid. So come back to the orchid. So it's no different than if you were colouring with your pencils, but it's very easy. Really easy. Just to blend with the paints, particularly if you use them when they're wet. So let's lift this up. Okay, so let's give this a dry. Okay, so we're just going to give that a dry, and now you can see it sort of blends in to the background. So let's just remove all this. So that's a nice easy way to colour your floral, but what you've done now is blended that into the background. So this is where most of you will go, oh, I've blended it into the background now, and you know, I'm not sure. Make sure you've dried that, which I have. Place this back over. So you're going to have to faff a little bit. Is that about right? Yeah. There we go. So then I'm going to grab a little bit more sponge. So I just need my big scissors. So if you want to carry on with your pencils, just carry on with your pencils and blend them. But for those of you that haven't got pencils, you can still use your paints to colour. So I'm going to come in with a little bit of white, and I've only got another piece of sponge mainly because that one is covered in all the other colours now. So I'm going to take a little bit of the white. I'm just taking a little bit of the white. And I'm just dabbing a little tiny bit of the white onto the stencil. I'm not dabbing like I was before with loads of paint. I'm just dabbing a little bit just with the white. So let me just lift that up. Oh, yes, yes, yes. So I'm very lightly dabbing with a little bit of that white, very lightly. So now you've got your paints on there and it's like a little shadow. Can you see? By adding a touch of white on the top, it gives you a little shadow. And then if I want, I can still come in with some pencil work. Oh, crikey, I'm dropping everything everywhere. So I've given you 3 ways that you can colour it. You can colour it with your pencils, you can colour it with your paints, and then add some white over like I've done. And then you can smudge the white all over you. So it's entirely up to you how you colour your floral. There's so many ways that you can do it. Clean up your mess. And then I'm going to come in with some, let's have a look now at my pencils. Where are you? There we go, really dark here. I'm going to give this a little bit of a dry. Now I've got violet. Can you see? I've now got sort of a shadow on there. It's entirely up to you how you colour your image. I like to have a little bit of fun and show different ways of doing things. So I've got my violet now, which is PC 932, and I'm just going to add a little bit of violet just to sort of the edge of the stems. And there are that many layers of paint, you can feel the edges. I'm just adding a little bit of the violet just to the edge of the florals. And again, it's up to you how you colour your floral. So just bring in my stem. So I'm just bringing in a little bit more of the violet. So it's entirely up to you how you colour everything and how you bring it to life. I'm going to take my white pencil, just make sure I've got a white edge. So it's entirely up to you. Now the flower, it's got like a frosting because it's got the paint on there and it feels kind of frosted because it's got all that texture on there. So again, it's entirely up to you. I can see all the colours underneath, just so you can see this. So I'm going to add a little bit of white to that. So I'm going to take my bleed proof white. Don't forget, these are just, this is the background. I'm going to add one that's cut out as well. There we go. But you don't have to do any part of this. You can just do one part of it if you wish. It's entirely your page. And yes, I will make that much effort for something that is going in the background. So I'm just using the bleed proof white. Just to add a little bit more detail to my floral. Because I wanted that floral to be different than these florals. Just add a little bit. So I'm just adding this bleed proof white. It's brilliant, the bleed proof white is, because nothing bleeds through that. Okay, let's bring this white down here. Bring that white just down there so you can see the stem. So just bringing that down there. We'll just give that a little bit of a clean. Go. Today's gone so quickly because I've been packing orders and things. Right, so I'm now going to take a piece of white card. Now, do I want to add, where are you? TE. I'm going to take the stamp set TE 37. So let's take that. Now there is a single floral on its own. It's entirely up to you which you use. I'll just stamp the whole thing and then decide. So I'm going to use, is it Lilac Bloom? If you don't know, just test it on your card. Yes, I'm going to use Lilac Bloom. It's probably that one I want. Oh, I've got a stamp on there. So this is TE 37, which is Flower Power. So let's bring that in so you can still see. There we go, that's it. So cut out afterwards, Tracy, and I'm just going to take this sort of daisy here. Let me just, where are my scissors? There they are. Because I can draw in the stems afterwards. Look at these, I've got all my stamps in the way falling off. Flowers. So I'm then going to take my colours. So I'm going to start with the Black Cherry 1078. And we'll just start with that 1078. Just add this to our page. I might use that one as well. And it's just the flowers themselves I'm going to cut out, because I can just add the stems. And if you want to see where your centre is, you can just come in and you can add that before you even add any more colouring. You can just add that centre part to give you a visual. I'm then going to take the Mulberry 995. And let's just add the mulberry. And most of the petals are sort of together, so you can colour them together without sort of doing them separate, apart from these little ones underneath, because it's quite a detailed floral. Shall we come and add a little bit of the darker colour? Just here. So I'm adding a little bit of that Black Cherry just at the tips as well. Again, it's up to you what medium you use. When you've laid down the first sort of layers of pigment, you really do have a visual then, and it really helps. It really helps with your colouring. So we then come to the mulberry. Just add, and because there's so many petals, you will miss one like I do every single time. But once you've coloured it to a certain way, you can see exactly where you're going. So it works quite nicely. So I'm just adding a little bit of that mulberry. Things always come to life once you add a little bit of colour. Just add a little bit more of the white, just so that you can see. If you can't see where your centre bit is, go to the Black Cherry and just come around the centre. Just add a little bit more. Just add to that circular area, and then you've got a visual, so you can see your centre piece. Then I'm going to come to the Process Red and just add a little bit of the Process Red. And again, just take your time just to colour your floral. they'll start to come to life the more layers you add. So then I'm going to come back to my black cherry, and I'm just going to add a little bit more. Of that black cherry. And maybe where you've got some petals that meet, just make it a little bit darker. Just so that you can see there's a difference between the petals. And just take your time. And then come around this again, just so that you can see where you're going. And it's actually easier than you think to cut out the daisy flowers. So just come in where you need to add a little bit more darkness. Just come in. Again, don't forget that centre bit, just so that you can see where you're going. Once you add that centre touch around here and you can see where you're going, that really helps. And some professionals, when they're colouring, they spend hours just on one piece by layering everything so gently. There we go. So then I'm going to come to the Process Red. No, Mulberry. Sorry, the Mulberry is my second colour. So come in with your Mulberry, with your second colour. And it just starts to come to life a little bit more. And you'll find a way that suits you with your colouring. And you can obviously see the difference between when you colour on acrylic paint, especially when you add as many layers as I do. Obviously, if you didn't add as many layers of paint as I did, you will get a smoother finish with your acrylic paints as well. So just take your time just to colour your florals. They just come together beautifully. Then it's the Process Red. I'm going to come in with a little bit of white to sort of blend all this together. Don't need the see, it only needs touches on there because the floral's quite. I'm then going to sort of come in with the white and blend very lightly. Just with that pencil. That I'm going to leave quite gentle because I quite like that. Lovely. I'm then just going to take a little bit of that violet and I'm just going to come in with a little bit of the violet, sort of in between some of the petals, just so you get some sort of difference between where the petals are close up. So I'm just going to come in with that violet, just so some of the petals have a little bit more definition. So I'm just adding a little bit of the violet here and there, just so that the petals do show a little bit of difference between each other. It's just a little touch, but it will just so they've got some difference between them, just so that you can see that there's a little bit of difference between them. We will add some more white to that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut out the daisy now. I'm just going to cut out the daisy, just so that we've got this for our page. That little bit of card at the bottom is a bit troublesome. Oh, we don't want that. There we go. So you literally just go up and down on your petals. It's up to you whether you leave white space or you don't leave white space. Again, that's your journal page, so it's absolutely fine. This is the only disadvantage at this time of year. So it's going dark now, so it means I can't take a picture then until the following day for the video. Bit of a pain. But I've had so much stock that I've restocked that I had to sort of get out of boxes. We have boxes everywhere. So I just had to get those all out. And I don't know about you, I can't work when there's mess everywhere. And this then will just work against my background. With just a little pop of white. And it's only going up and down, so it's not too difficult to cut out. Okay. So here is one floral. Obviously I'm going to add a little bit, oh, you can't see, of white to the background. So I'm going to add a little bit of white to that. So let's cut this one out as well. And I must say I'm really enjoying looking back at the journal pages. It's wonderful. So let's cut that out there. There we go. So I tend to, as I always say, I turn the card rather than my scissors. I find it a little bit easier to do that. Now, if you were creating this as a card, you could add a little bit of depth by adding pin flare to the back or your 3D foam pads to the florals. Obviously, with this being in my journal, I don't want to do that. There we go. That's it. So let's sort of move that out of the way, not sort of. So I will faff with this anyway. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, just before I do that, I'm going to add a little bit of white paint to my distressed background, which is this one. I'm going to use my distressed background, SS31. I'm going to take a little bit of white paint with the lid off, hopefully. Take a little bit of white paint and I'm going to add that to my stencil. Then I'm going to spritz that with a little bit of water. And I'm just spritzing with water so that that doesn't stick. I don't want that to stick to the paint that's already there. So I'm just adding some of the chevrons to the background and just using that kitchen roll just so that it makes good contact. There we go. And then let's add these. I don't know whether there's enough paint on there, but let's add these to the bottom. Yes. So we'll just clean this up. So I'm just adding touches of white with the Harlequin diamonds. That's it. I'm going to give this a little bit of a dry so we don't have that white paint on there. Sorry, that moisture on there. There we go. Let's just dab that bit of moisture there. Got that many things piling up now, and I just want a little bit of black text. So I'm going to take the text from TE45 because that text talks all about the garden. So I'm going to use that one. I'm going to take my Nocturne ink. Let's make sure that we don't ink this up over our page because we don't want to drop that on the page. Let me just clean that up. And what I'm going to do is just add little bits of my black text here and there. Let me just give that a dry, because you've stamped this black ink directly onto your acrylic paint, so you need to just give that a dry. So dry that until it goes back matte and you've not got anything shining. There we go. And with having the camera, it's wonderful because you can just see exactly what you've got. So we'll have those florals. We'll have a little bit of white cotton. So let's take the white cotton. Just pull that out, nice long lengths, just so you can add a little bit of texture just to your page. I'm then going to take my adhesive and we'll add our florals. Now I'm not adding it to the edge, I'm just adding it to the centre. Now I've got that cotton on there, so I'm going to have to press that down, but I'll do that once I've got my florals in position, just so that I can still see a little bit of my text as well. So I'm just going to hold that down because you've got the cotton on there. And sometimes the cotton stops everything from sticking down. Can you see that's lifting again? So you just need to give that a little bit of time just to grab onto that surface, especially when you've got those bits of cotton on there. It's really easily when you've got the bits of cotton on there. Right, so let's grab a black pen and we'll bring, this is sort of a micron pen, something like that. And then I'm just adding a little bit of a stem, just so that the florals are not floating in mid-air. They've got some stem on there. I'm going to take a little bit more of this text now, and I'm going to add that to my background in certain areas. I'm going to take a little bit of the black text, just because it really does, it lifts everything as well with just a touch of black. And what I'm doing is I'm not adding too much, I'm adding little touches. It's not overpowering, it's just little touches of that black. Just works really nicely. So I'm then going to take my bleed proof again. Let's pick this up. A little bit of the bleed proof, and we're going to add a little bit to the centre, just so that that stands out a little bit more. And you can just add a few little touches of white just to lift that a little bit. You're not going overboard so it's too false. or I'm not. Let's just rephrase that. It's entirely up to you how you go about just adding a little bit of the white to your project. It's entirely up to you. There we go. So I don't sort of want to make that too false. This poor kitchen towel has been used for so much. I'm a little bit better with my brushes now. I don't let them get in too much of a mess. So I'm just giving my hands a little bit of a clean because I've got every colour under the sun on my hands. There we go. And then I'm going to add a little bit of shading to our page, but I'm also going to give this VersaFine Clair ink a little bit of a dry as well. I'm then going to add a little bit of shading just to the stem, just so that you can see those a little bit more. Let's grab some water. And I can see that's still got lots of white in, but then you should have, because it's highly pigmented. And I'm just going to... Now the Inktense pencil, which is what I'm using here to add a little bit of the shading, that Inktense pencil works beautifully on acrylic paint. But Inktense pencils go on any surface, but on acrylic paint they are just wonderful. It's just, they work really well. Just dab that a little bit. So this is where I do faff even more. So I'm just going to bring a little bit more definition just to the daisy. And look at that. That's with the Inktense pencil. Just in this, right at this edge here, just bring in a little bit more definition. I mean, you might not faff as much as me. A bit more water. A bit more water, and then I drown it. But this is what I love about journal pages, is you can go back as many times as you wish, and you can just highlight as much or as little as you wish. Or you can faff as much as I do, for instance. Where you think you've finished and you come back in and add more detail. I'm now going to add some white splatters. To our wonderful page. And then, just with the word flowers, we can call that finished. Just grab the word flowers, which is also on the same stamp set, TE37. It has the word flowers on there that I keep losing. Why have I lost them now? See, I should have stuck that letter down, them letters down. Bear with me. Where's it gone? It was stuck on here and now I've lost the word. And I know you can all relate. And the minute I finish the video, it'll just turn up. What other words have we got? I wanted the word flowers. Oh, come on, where are... Oh, there it is. Guess where it was? Guess where the word was? On the floor. There it is. That's it. It was the word I wanted. I'm like, typical. The one word, and the flowers word is on the TE37, and I want that word just there. And again, we're stamping onto that acrylic paint. Now, there were many stages that you could have stopped this. You could have just left it where it had the white all on there and nothing else. So there's lots of stages you could have quite easily left and not done any more. So it's lovely to see how things progress. So let's give that a little bit of a dry. Don't ask me why I moved that heat tool. There is no apparent reason. You just have to ignore that bit. I don't know why. So I'm going to use my Inktense pencil again, just to add a little bit of shading under there. A little bit more water. Let's clean that up. And then it just moves so beautifully on that acrylic paint. It's just wonderful. There we go. So this will probably go out now on the Saturday because it's now sort of quite dark. One very big disadvantage of this time of year, unfortunately. There we go. So let's just turn this round for you, and then you can see our journal page. And you know, I've really enjoyed that. I've just enjoyed the process, and I hope you enjoy that process too, and I hope you'll give that a go, whether you take small little bits from it or whatever. So lots of love, everyone, and I'll see you all soon. Bye for now.